Our guest for this hour is a man who's been in the entertainment industry for a number of years. He's been a part of a group of musicians called P Unit and also in the leadership of the performing artists in the country. He has been in politics. In 2017. He threw his hat in the ring and said he had wanted to join politics. He didn't get to the ballot, but this time he's back and he says, I want to be a member of the Machakos County Assembly representing the people of Athi River Ward. His name, Francis Amisi. Frasha. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Good to have you in the show. Welcome to Kenya's
Thanks
biggest conversation.
Thanks a lot for having me.
We call that the hot seat. So be prepared for us to warm it up a little bit for you as we have a conversation about leadership, about youth leadership, about future leadership, alternative leadership, and all. Karibu sana.
Thank you. It's already hot.
So you want to be MCA for Athi River?
Yes.
And this is not the first time that you are expressing interest in this particular seat. Tell us the last time, what happened?
Yeah, so I was running on Maendeleo Chap Chap ticket. And what Maendeleo Chap Chap did, there was no nominations at party levels. It was negotiations. You went on the table and, they decided on somebody else. And so I stepped down. And lucky enough, I was given a job at the Machakos County as the director for youth. We did this for around 1 year, almost 2 years. And when the reshuffle was done, we found ourselves out of the government.
Okay.
But, it was a good journey for me because I got to learn something different because I was in the entertainment department. For me to jump into politics, it was quite a learning process. And, I thank the governor for giving me the opportunity at that moment. And also the people that I was working with in the same department. Yeah.
So you say you learned something in the 1 year that you served as the director for youth in the Machakos County government. What did you learn?
First thing, I learned how the government works. Because, we all say we want to bring change, for me as an MCA. But once you get into the ground, you actually know how things are done in the county assembly and the county government in general. How you need support from the assembly for the government, the county government to be able to function. How you need numbers from that. So for me, I thought, I've seen how the system is working. So how do I fit in the next election?
Right.
Yeah.
Why did you make the jump? I mean, because, it's East and West as far as these two areas are concerned. Why would you want to leave the entertainment industry and then go into something as volatile as politics?
Yeah, first of all, I don't know why we try and make politics like it's a bad thing. It's not a bad thing, to get into politics. Everything around our lives is evolved around politics. And once you realize that, then you realize that people are making decisions on your behalf. From where you're living in your house, how you're buying your things, the mkates, all these things have VAT on top of it, so we are paying taxes.
Yes.
And once you understand that, personally, I have a vision, and my vision is about serving the people. It has been shown through my life, I was once a physiotherapist. I used to serve people in terms of medical field. Got into music, serving people again, entertainment. I've been running a foundation for the last 6 years, which again goes into serving the people. So I've had an experience of just giving back to the community, and I thought, how far can I take this? And me moving from music into politics was a part of me saying, I want to take up the challenge of helping the people where I've come from, where I grew up from. And, when you go to Athi River, which is a place where I'm seeking to be elected, you'll find that things like garbage are still a problem. 2022, we're in 2022, we're still having the garbage problem. We're still having the sewage problem. We are still having the environment issues in Athi River. So I thought, maybe it's time for someone like me to just stand up and say, let me try my luck and see how far I can push, change the Athi River.
You sat in this position as director of youth and
Yeah.
in the government.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Did it give you a bit of a a forecast into what it could possibly be if you then sat in a position then of persuasion and influence like the MCA or a member of parliament? Did it give you a front row seat? And then what then were you able to see that could possibly make things easier for you, or at least give you a wider lens view of if you then became MCA, how you would operate differently?
Yeah. First of all, one of the things is when I was seeking election last time, after I was dropped by Mandela Chap, I was like, maybe I should stand as an independent, you know. And I came to realize that if you're an independent, you cannot make any decisions in the assembly, because regardless of what you do, when you're passing bills, it boils down again to the parties. You know, people will pass bills because of the party they belong to. And so for me, it was a learning process from the directorship, and then also looking at how do you get money in different departments. One of the biggest issues I had when I was in government is that we did not have any allocation of budget directly to our department. So doing things, you had to go and look for money from other departments for you to be able to push some of the things that were in your department. It was a learning process. I learned a lot, especially how do you help the youth in terms of programs by using, PPP's partnership with the private sector. How do you go ahead because the government money is somehow not enough for you to be able to achieve all the things that that have been put in the inter-county development plans. And so I learned a lot. I can say it was, for me, as I said earlier, it was an eye-opener, to serve as the director.
How is it possible that you have a department, and departments in counties are like ministries, right? So you're a director of youth. What was the department called? What's the CEC? Is the CEC for?
Yeah, so we had a CEC. The CEC was in tourism. I think tourism, sports, and youth.
So tourism, sports, and youth.
Yeah.
I would imagine that when the county executive is going to the county assembly seeking approval of its budget, it presents that and says, "This is what we want to spend in these 10 departments, the 10 ministries of the county." So in the Ministry of Tourism, Youth and Sports, we expect X amount of money to be allocated. How can then it boil down to youth not having any budget? So where was the budget for this ministry going?
Okay, so this is what happened. When we got into government, His Excellency, the governor, actually reshuffled the ministries. So before, earlier on, the youth, my department was under education. And then we were moved from education into the tourism and, sports and youth. And so the money that had been allocated was allocated to the education department, because that's where the ministry was. And, I had been moved. So it was a challenge for me to be able to tap into that money, because it's not in my department at that particular moment. So, but, you continue as you work, people, because they know the programs are still there, you're able to channel the money from that department to your department. But as I said, government works totally different from what we think when we're outside.
Would there be, I'm looking at now what you've done and then what you hope to do. When people see you or when people hear from you, they resonate with the entertainment side of things. Is there a shedding of an image then that needs to happen in order for them to see you in a different light than when it comes to the agitation of some of these issues being put in place? I'm just looking at Athi River, for example, and the things that people are having to deal with: water and sewage and sanitation, poor roads and infrastructure, so many things that need to happen in terms of county government coming into place to meet them at the point of their need. The garbage that you talked about, market facilities. The list is endless, right? And these are things that need some serious work that need to be done, persuasion that needs to happen, boots on the ground to get the job done. Does there need, stay with me here, does there need to be a shedding of an image whereby it was entertainment before and then people are now looking at the same individual to sort out these issues that are dogging their existence in the current day?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of stereotypes out there. And this, I experienced this firsthand. When I was moving from medicine into entertainment, I still got the same, because people were looking at me, okay, so you're singing, are you going to treat people in the hospitals, you know? Kwanza unaimba genge, as in, how are you going to treat me in hospitals? And that's one of the reasons I used to hide myself when I started doing music, because there was that stereotype of how do you become serious, and at the same time, for some reason, they take entertainment not very serious.
That's not serious.
Yeah. And you know, my thing was how do I move from this to this? And I've been able to do that by showing people who I am. You know, my personality speaks for itself. If we meet, and my vision for example, my life has been about serving people, and so. If somebody gets to know who I am, and that's what when I go to the ground, I try and sell, because I try and sell my personality, because I don't want to be one of those politicians that you see them and you associate them with a particular person instead of particular issues, you know, and so I think there is a lot to be done in terms of shedding that Frasha is a musician into a leader, and it's going to take a bit of time, but I'm already working on it.
Right.
Yeah.
What's your track record? What do you bring into leadership? When you say, you know, you want to be a leader, you've been in the music industry, like Ndu is saying, you've been the entertainer. So what pedigree do you have in leadership and leading people?
Yeah, I think Africans say leadership starts at home. I've been married for 21 years. My firstborn is 19 years. My secondborn is 17 years. Leadership has started in my house, because if you cannot get your house in order, then leadership out here can be a bit of a challenge. I've been in leadership throughout my lifetime. When I was working in Aga Khan, I was a leader back then. When I got into music, I got elected by musicians in the MCA, you know, in the budget committee, which again was another fight for the music industry. You know, I think my track record in terms of leadership has been proven, and when I went to Machakos, when I was the director for youth, I was the first person to put a bill to the county assembly because when you got into that department, there was no what we call it, policies. There were no policies for the youth, and so we had to first of all sit down and do public participation, and throughout go around that whole process of getting a bill for the youth. So. For me, I think if you look at me and where I come from, and you get to know, understand my personality, then you'll see some of the leadership traits that I bring on the table.
Right.
Yeah.
So, what is it that you're promising the people over the river? What do you have? Like a 2-point plan, a 10-point plan?
Yeah, I have a 5-point plan.
It has to be a number. It has to be an
that-
odd
that-
number.
There's certain things we must then hold you to. And say,
Yes,
1, 2, 3.
yes.
So what are the 5?
My first one is education. I think, for me, I think we have the national type of education whereby, but for me, I think things have changed. We're preparing our youth for a different kind of life. If you look at Machakos, one of the things that I would want to do in Athi River is to create safe spaces for young guys to be able to become creative, innovative, and just people whereby because we're dealing with millennials, and they are a bit different from who we are, and we don't see this in the kind of education that we have. If you look at education in Kenya, we are preparing our youths to this kind of life that we have right now, and not, because I think the world is changing. We're not preparing for our kids for cryptocurrencies, for example. We're still teaching we're not preparing them to work from home. We're preparing them to become doctors, like some of us who have been pushed to be. And it's not something that you want to do. So, for me, one of the key pillars will be for education. How do we integrate policies whereby, yes, there is the national curriculum that is going on, but on the other hand, how are we developing talents in Athi River? That would be one. 2 is about the environment, and I think Anybody who knows Athi River knows it as an industrial town. There are so many. We have eight cement factories. We have KMC. We have Baba Tanneries. We have Devik. You know, there's so many industries there. So with the industries comes a lot of pollution. And, you know, if you look at the policies that guide pollution in Athi River, they've not been implemented. And I think one of the times the governor actually closed one of the companies because of polluting the river. So that would be another pointer for me to be able to look at how do we collect garbage? How do we have systems that go? How do we embrace recycling? Because there's one thing about disposal, but how do you embrace recycling? And through partners, you can be able to do that. The other thing that I would want to do is job creation. And job creation is how do we partner with all these companies? Because you find that the companies that are in Athi River, they will employ the local mwananchi kufanya kazi hizi za mkono. But when it comes to management levels, places where you can be able to sit on the table and, you know, make decisions about that company, the people from Athi River are not involved. So how do we look at policies whereby we get people from Athi River, locals, into the management positions in the companies that are in Athi River? The other one is infrastructure, and infrastructure, I mean roads, lights, you know, all the normal things that everybody does. But then, again, for example, if it's something people from do this, how are they integrated in terms when you're building a road? Yes, you're building a road for the cars. How do you put a place for do this to be able to pass? How do you put a place for people to be walking? Because sometimes you find a road that has been built, yet most of the people that are in that area are actually using do this, but they're not, you know, they're not being looked into. Tapata gari zinapita, but also undo the pia because they are carrying people. How do you make them safe on the roads? So, and then the last one will be health. And this is something that I'm very passionate about. I think if anybody who thinks about the future, when you say you want to have the youth as the future, you must look at the old people. Because if the youth are to get into positions, it means there is a generation that is growing old. And the older people, most of the things that they need is health. And so how do you look at providing health solutions that work? I can, on 2 days ago, I happened to get somebody who had an accident at Syokimau. And so we took them to Machakos General Hospital. And I had to buy everything from the plaster, from the medication, from gloves. There was no X-ray, no MRI, you know. And this is an hospital that
this is the level 5.
Can we just take a few steps back? Yeah. Because I think this is extremely important in some of the things that we're talking about. Then, if you see a situation like this, and then you are then in a position later on, you know, that you then be able to see how you can influence to change some of these things. So are you saying that when you go in and pay for treatment, you're basically only paying for the individuals who administered the care? But in terms of all these other things, they do not exist. They're not available at a level 5 hospital in a county?
At a level 5. And it's a hospital that I've helped build, because when we were there, I was part of the group that we helped build the hospital. And for me, it was heartbreaking for me to go there 2 years later, 3 years later, and find the only thing that was there was the health caregivers. And I'm telling you, they were overwhelmed because if you look at, I come from a medical background, so I know what it means to give health care. And so for me to go there are no gloves, even spirits, sanitizers, small things that people need to find in hospitals. And it was a great shock for me. And I actually talked to the nurses to try to get, but they're saying this is what happens here, because
this is every day,
and that's a level 5. So in Athi River we have a level 4. So you can imagine if a level 5 has such issues, how do you get into a level 4? And so for me is how do we get policies to never have a situation like that?
Yes, exactly.
In the room with you is Eric Latif, Ndu Oko, and Frasha, Francis Amisi. entertainer, a physiotherapist, wants to be the next MCA for Athi River. What the Situation Room is doing today and in coming days is vetting Kenya's next leaders. We know for sure that the next National Assembly, the next Senate, the next 47 county assemblies will have more than 50% of new leaders, first-timers, just based on the experience of the previous elections. So who are these new leaders and what is it that they bring to the table? We've been talking about the frustrations that people have with the current crop of leaders. Okay, so you're looking for new leadership. Who are they? And that's why we have Frasha and others who will be joining us. Diru Shah is on the line and he wants to ask a question to Frasha. Diru, good morning.
Morning, how are you?
Very
Thank
well.
you for giving me time.
Okay.
I have a question to the MCA. MCA, you cannot create jobs besides government. Government is overloaded by people, which are 50% to be reduction for the new budget, new government comes in, if it to function. What is your idea? How can you create jobs without government jobs?
Very good.
That is one. Second question is, the biggest problem for us as a manufacturer or living in Kenya is a cost of doing anything. Cost of doing anything. And one of the costs, which one of the element is levies. We got 17 levies in our country. Like he was a musician, so he understands that he has been paying levies. In return, what he has been getting on levies. And what is the view? The levy can be suspended for 5 years and all those people can be sent home running the levies. That is the question.
Asante. So start with the job creation, because this is one of the things that you're saying. This is among your pillars.
Yeah.
Job creation.
That's a very good question. And most people will ask you, so you're coming in and, you know, there was an MCA here before. He promised us the same thing to create jobs. But how do you do this? And for me, first of all, is to create an enabling environment for business to thrive. When I say this, is for both the government, the county government, and to the business people. What I intend to do is, first of all, to create laws that would enable the businessmen, in terms of the levies that he's talking about, take them down a bit. I think we did this during the COVID season, whereby the government of Machakos actually reduced some of the levies to the business people. And this can be done if there is proper planning of how much money do we get into the government, into the county governments. And for me, I think one of the things, the basic things would be to create laws that will be able to help the people that are doing business in Athi River to reduce the levies that they pay.
Okay.
In turn,
Let's go into the nitty-gritty.
Yes.
All right. Creating laws that will have an enabling environment that will then spur economic growth and have industries coming in. We have laws in Machakos County presently. Which laws are these that you want to repeal? Which laws do you want to amend? Which new legislation do you want to introduce? Okay. Specifics.
Right. Now, first of all, before we get into the laws, the biggest challenge would any MCA would have, or any member of parliament would have, is what numbers do you have in the county assembly? So that even if I want to change the law, for example, the levies that are put on people who do transport, for example, you know, because in Athi River there's a lot of mining, so there's a lot of levies that are paid on the road for you to be able to transport. So, for example, if we were to reduce these levies, if I was to come up with a law that said, okay, now we can reduce these levies, will I table it in Parliament in the county assembly, and people would they pass it or not? Because if I don't have numbers, and if our party that is the majority, as the majority assembly members, does not pass it, then whatever vision that I have to be able to help people, I'll not be able to accomplish it. And that's one of the reasons why you'll hear a young person has gotten into government and people say, this guy is not working. Why? Because he does not enjoy the numbers in the assembly. Because whatever things you're thinking about in your head for you to be able to pass cannot see the light of day when they go into assembly.
But Frasha, there are two things here. There's one, an assembly, National Assembly, County Assembly, is a house of debate.
Yes.
House of debate means convincing people to see your point of view. Now, if you come with something that is logical, even you can cut through party lines and get people to sponsor it or to support it. I want to hear this logical thing. So tell me, for example, yes, we have got all these trucks that bring sand across Athi River, some of them coming through from Makueni through Athi River, through Machakos County into Machakos, all these businesses. So this is the specific law that creates these levies, and this is how much the levies are, and I want to reduce this by X%, or from this levy reduced by 100 shillings, and that then will have this kind of impact. That's what we want to hear. We want to hear specifics, Frasha.
Yeah, Latif, and unfortunately, our governments don't work like that. People will always vote on party lines, unfortunately. And whatever, even if I came up with the best ideas, or for example, in terms of health, because that's one of the places, or even creatives, even if I came up with a very good draft law, if I do not enjoy the majority in the party, in the local assembly, unfortunately, that is what happens. And that is why people have not understood how it is important for you to have numbers, to have the right party, and to have the numbers in the assembly for you to be able to pass laws. So
what party are you vying with?
For me, for now, I've not decided the party.
You're weighing the party that's likely to be the strongest party. So let's assume you actually land on the party that then has the numbers in the assembly. What are you going to do? Let's talk about that. Job creation. Again, specifics.
Right. So when I was in county assembly, to the county government, as I said, I was one of the directors of youth. And one of the things that I did was to push for the policies for youth to get actually employed by some of the companies that are in Athi River, to make it mandatory for them to have a certain percentage of young people that are employed into those companies. This is already in the CIDP for the counties, which was, I think we passed it, public participation was in November last year. And this is what is going to come into place in 2022 to the next elections. So part of the things that I want to do is make it mandatory for all companies that work in Athi River to have a certain amount of people from Athi River to be employed into this. Two, if you look at the environment, as we look at it, it's a place where we can employ a lot of youth. As I said, there is garbage disposal, but again, there is recycling. Looking at partners that we can be able to get. For example, if it's a football team. Football teams are people do tournaments, and you have a large sum of amount for young guys to come and play the football and then get the amount. But what happens afterwards? So for me, it's how do I create value addition into these teams in terms of how do they get sponsorship for them to start small businesses. This can be done through government. We can, for example, in Machakos, we had a plan to have all the teams that, because we have a regional county tournament. So for these people that are playing these tournaments, we add a bus something we call, I can't remember the name of the amount of money that they were supposed to be given for them to start small businesses in terms of car washes, if it's packaging of water for them to be able to sell around. And now it's mandatory that all counties have female football teams. These are just random ideas that I'm getting. For example, the female teams, how do you then after the football, how do you make them, have something sustainable? So, for example, in the county when I was working there, for the female teams, we were giving them money for them to start off small businesses such as, selling of nyanya, selling of whatever, and for them to have a table banking whereby they'll be able to get money from the county government, do business, and be able to send, pay back the money for this. So there are small things that I've looked into. There are details that I may not be able to give right now, but there are small places whereby I know we can be able to create jobs for these young people in Athi River.
Right. Does it worry you with all these ideas that you have, and also with the policy change that you hope to bring about after having worked in government? Does it worry you that if you then don't make the right decision in terms of which party you'll be part of, then all of these things will be dead in the water? And I think it's a very scary place to be.
It is.
As an aspiring leader. That if you don't make the right party decision, that essentially everything that you want to do will go to blazes.
Yeah, it is. Let me tell you one of the things that I believe in. I'm personally a Luo and Kamba, but I've been born in Machakos. I'm married to a Kikuyu, right? And what happens is that our parties are not aligned on issues. As a Kenyan, not even as somebody who's vying, as a Kenyan, our parties are aligned on tribal basis, basically. And so for someone like me who doesn't agree, and, I don't agree with some of the, the card that is used as tribe, I find myself in a place whereby, when you look at it, is in Machakos, there's this, party that is big. In Luoland, there's this party which is big. In, maybe Rift Valley, there's this party which is big. And if you don't align yourself in those parties, then you find yourself out of, development. You cannot have a development track record because whatever you're pushing down into the assemblies or into the parliament is being shot down because your party is not the majority in the assembly.
I think it's important for Kenyans to hear. So do you think, it's very important in terms of what you want to do, but it's also important how you perceive what is currently happening in today's government and in today's administration. So do you think that even those who have the power of party numbers, are they doing enough with what they have at their disposal in terms of developments in the different areas that they represent?
Again comes down to interest. And that is why I said when I was beginning that everything involves politics. And so once you get into those positions and you have those numbers, again, people come back to what are the interests of these people? What is the interest of your elected member of parliament? What is the interest of your MCA in your region? Is it to build roads? Is it to create jobs? Is it to, for example, create spaces for creatives? What do they want to push? Because if, for example, you don't come into from the entertainment world, you wouldn't know what to push in terms of creatives. If you don't come from a medical background, then when it comes to medicine, you actually don't know the background of it. So depending on what your elected member wants to push, I think whatever numbers they get will depend again on what he himself wants to push as his agenda. Yeah.
So if you go to Parliament, to the County Assembly of Machakos, looking again at the 5 issues that you said, health, okay? So you're a medical professional. You know, you've worked in a working health facility in the private sector. You've also, interacted with the public sector. What ails Machakos' health system, and what is it that you want to do to fix it?
I don't think it's even Machakos. It's just generally the health problem in our country. And I think this came about when there was... First of all, the healthcare system was being managed by the national government. And then it was pushed down to the county assembly. And the problem is that the big money is controlled by the national government in terms of health. And this money for the county assemblies, you've had, county governments, you've had them complain time and time again that they don't get the money in time, so they're not able to plan. So the biggest problem will be, how do we get this money channeled directly to the county assemblies for them to be able to sustain the healthcare system?
What do you mean directly?
From
taxpayer directly to the county? Or is it from the national treasury?
From the national treasury direct to the healthcare system. The biggest problem is this. So, for example, in Machakos, why Muthui had issues is because he couldn't control the assembly, and so whatever ideas and whatever budgets he was looking for would actually go down to the assembly, and there would be an issue there. So, I think number one, the healthcare system, it's either needs to be run by the national government and take away the county governments. For it to be, if you're employed by the national government. If it's money that is coming, it's coming from the national government. And if it's plans for how they expand, it comes from the national government. Or push it down to the county government and make sure it's sustained by the amount of money that is pushed from the national government.
So which of those two will you be advocating for if you become MCA? Do you want health to move away from county government to go back to national?
No. I think devolution is a good thing. The moment you start pushing things down to the county governments, I think it's good because it goes down to Mwananchi. That's the closest that Mwananchi can actually get.
Okay.
But
so
again,
what should the county government of Machakos, and what will you do as member of the county government of Machakos to make sure that, at least for Machakos, then money is disbursed on time and adequately?
I think it all boils down to policies and then implementation and having the right people for the job at the right time for the job. If you look at the people that were employed previously, I think when we were building Machakos Hospital, there are people who have had cases of embezzling funds from the county government, and there are many people with cases right now for doing this. I think is to get the right people for the job and the right policies, and make sure that there is a sustainable way of making the hospitals get money for the drugs, money for the facilities.
How?
A policy. As I said, it's to create policies.
Is there no policy at present, or will you be amending a policy? Will you be introducing a new policy? I mean, think currently what's happening, and then how is it going to be different?
Currently, what is happening is that there's nothing happening in the hospitals, because for what I saw for myself, and this was in a level 5 hospital, I can say that that's not an hospital. It's a consultation room whereby you go and you consult with your doctor, and then if it's medicine, everything you have to go. You go buy it for yourself. So there has to be policy, and this is, I'm telling you, if there was a policy that involved finances in the hospitals, it would be easier for the management of the hospitals to make the hospitals run.
Frasha, I do not believe that there's a policy in place right now in the national level or at the Machakos County government level that says you go into the county's referral hospital, you should not find these supplies.
There isn't.
It's not a policy that says that you walk in and you don't find gloves or spirit or sanitizer.
Or are you saying that there's no policy by which health is guided in the county? Things are just ad hoc in terms of financial flows.
It's exactly financial flows. There is no policy that says there shouldn't be a drug. There is policies that say this is how the money should be channeled down to the healthcare system. But now there is no follow up for how does this money come on time? Does this why are people not getting paid in time? The healthcare workers is because the money does not come down in time.
From where?
There is from the national.
So money from the national treasury is not coming to the counties on time.
Yes.
What would the county government, what would the county assembly of Machakos do to make money come from the national treasury on time?
And that's why I said it's not a Machakos issue. It's a general healthcare issue.
But you will be in the Machakos County.
Exactly. So my thing is lobbying, and that's why I said always look for numbers for you to be able to get money down. Because if money doesn't come down, then the problem that you're seeing in Machakos happens. And that's why the people in county assemblies need to lobby each other for them to be able to pull money from the national treasury. And this has been there. I think you've seen these fights over and over again. And it's not something that would go away easily. So first of all is to get into a party and make sure that in your party there is the push of how do we get money down to the county assemblies for them to be able to implement whatever programs they have.
Do you think that there is enough to be able to get things done? There's always room for more to be able to rise, developmentally. But at the moment, do you think there's enough? And obviously I'm talking here about funding at the government level, at the barest minimum, to get things running in a manner that will uphold the integrity of areas and Kenya's people? Is there enough right now?
I think there is enough. There is something that you can do from whatever we have in county assemblies and in county governments. The only people is, do we have the right people in places? For me, that becomes the biggest problem. If, for example, we have seen all counties for the last 10 years, there are some counties that have developed more than others. There are some counties which have used the resources they have better than others. So I think it's if you have the right leadership and if you have the right person in for the job at the right time, as I said. Yeah.
Kenyan Edwin says, many aspirants that you've spoken to promise to create and pass laws that will cushion the 190. Do they realize how difficult it is and how long it takes to pass a law?
As I say, that is the reality on the ground, and people, and that's one of the things that I learned, because the reality is, first of all, you must have numbers. Like it or not, you must have numbers, regardless of what ideas you have. For you to be able to pass and change any laws, there has to be a lot of lobbying. There has to be a lot of work on the public participation. All this, it's a tedious process, and until you understand that, then you can come in with ideas of changing and making a lot of changes in the area that you want to go in and get a rude shock, because if you don't understand the system, how the system works, you cannot fight that system.
Indeed.
Yeah.
The main things that you would be doing as a member of the county assembly would be representing the people of Athi River Ward, making sure that the county executive of Machakos is held to account, and this is oversighting its operations, and then also legislation. So we've talked a lot about lawmaking and the process of lawmaking, and you're saying the things that you're saying. Looking back still at the number of things that you're talking about, environment and education. Education is not a devolved function.
Yeah.
You're talking about having an education system that then addresses the things that you're saying, preparing the youth for the new generation. So what would the county assembly do? I mean, there is no law that you can pass that would affect the Kenya's education system at the county assembly of Machakos.
Yep.
There is no law that you can pass that would say the standard grade 6 pupils in Machakos County will now be taught about cryptocurrency. So what is it that you want to do about education?
Yeah, as I said before, I want to create safe spaces in terms of education. Education in tertiary education, education in creating spaces in places like the University of Machakos, the colleges in Machakos, a place where just young people can go in and learn extra from what the education system is there to offer. For example, in Machakos, we have 6 youth centers. These youth centers are in the towns, and the kind of education that people are supposed to get from these places are not delivered to the youth the right way, because they are not where the youths are. And the youths are in, these young guys are in campuses, and, the others are in schools. So if we can be able to build a safe space, just a place where the government is able to disseminate information in terms of education for things like the cryptocurrencies that we're talking about, things like health, having a safe space for health. For example, also in hospitals, how do we create a space whereby we have creatives? There's, for example, something called arts in medicine, which is something that I was trying to push. Arts in medicine is whereby we have entertainers helping the healthcare givers to take care of palliative care. People who have cancer, there's no medication that actually can help them, but you can be able to help them in terms of art in medicine. How do they draw? How do they, get music into the... These are some of the ideas that I have in terms of education, and there are new areas that have not been tapped, and there are new areas that I know if we tapped into them, one, they would create employment. Two, again, they'll also create something new and for the patients who are, for example, in hospitals. So I have these all ideas that given time, I will be able to show in terms of education. I'm not concerned really about the curriculum, but how do we add value?
How much more value can you add
into it?
So as we conclude the conversation this morning, take the next 30 seconds. Speak to the people of Athi River.
Yeah, first of all, nendo mukethia muno andu ma Athi River. I want to say hi to the people of Athi River. Nawashukuru sana. You know, I've had a journey with the Athi River people. This is where I was born, and so I want in 2022. This is the year for me to be elected as the MCA for Athi River. Naomba kura zenyu ya kwanza, ya pili najua niko tayari kuwatumikia na niko tayari kufanya kazi na nyinyi kama kazi na mzalendo wa Athi River. So for me it's just to ask the people of Athi River to vote for me in 2022.
Francis Amisi Frasha wants to be the next MCA for Athi River ward in Machakos County. He's been here with us. He's been telling us what he'd like to do if elected by the people of Athi River ward.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.